Heavy rain and wind gusts potentially over 50 miles per hour. Our Weather Authority team breaking down which areas could be hit the hardest and the massive drop in temperatures on the way. A suspect in the murder of a 2-year-old was set to be deported in 2022, but it never happened. Our team investigates why. Then we're live in Annapolis as lawmakers debate juvenile crime and how to fix the crisis.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
We are tracking a weather maker moving across Maryland tonight. This is a live look at the conditions on our weather radar, Baltimore, Towson, and on the roads along the Beltway. Wind advisories are also in effect across the state, and rain is coming down in spots, heavy at times. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Maxine Stryker in for Kai. Let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali with the latest. Gerard, how bad are these storms going to get?
Later on this evening, in the next couple of hours, we could see them getting stronger. Right now, it is just a rain threat that we're seeing out there. So wet roads as anyone's trying to head home for your evening commute. Definitely going to be some slick roads just with the water on the ground. We've seen enough with crashes already just since yesterday. But things are going to get a lot more active in just the coming hours here. We do have wind advisories in effect. Those gusts will be getting pretty strong later on, especially as we move into the overnight hours. Right now, they're gusting around 15 to 20 miles per hour. We could see gusts as high as 50 miles per hour later on this evening. So we've got a lot more to go with this storm system, but it is in effect for almost the entire area here. All right, here we are for the next 12 hours. One thing we will be seeing, not just with rain, the potential for thunderstorms. Some of them could produce, again, some gusts, even in excess of 50 miles per hour. We'll be watching for that. Overall, we're not expecting a lot of them to be severe, but there will be a couple that have that possibility. And then our temperatures do a sharp decline as we move into the overnight hours. We're going to be seeing them drop below freezing when we wake up tomorrow morning. So we've got a lot of weather to come. We're going to track the radar for you and give you a more hour-by-hour look at what is expected here this evening coming up in just a bit.
Gerard, thank you. Put the power of the Weather Authority Storm Center in your hands. Download the free WBFF Weather Authority app for your smartphone and use our powerful Doppler radar to follow storms right down to your street. Just go to the App Store, search WBFF to get started.
The battle over youth crime legislation is front and center in Annapolis. The House of Delegates debating the new details of the juvenile crime legislation on the floor today. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has been tracking the changes and joins us live from the State House to walk us through the new plans. Mackenzie?
Yeah, Maxine, so it was really a spirited debate on the House floor from lawmakers today as some of these amendments were brought forward and again continue to be discussed. As it stands right now, the House version of this plan, kids who are accused of stealing a crime, if they're between the ages of 10 and 12, if it's the first time, they would not face charges. And that's really some of this central angst that we continue to hear from lawmakers who argue that the legislation as it stands right now simply doesn't go far enough. And we continue to hear more frustrations as this bill is changed time and time again. We questioned some lawmakers, including the chairman of the House committee, where some of these plans really centered about where things stand now and if there are concerns about the legislation simply being watered down.
So what we're envisioning is that a police officer takes them directly into a diversion program. It's certainly a lot more than we're doing right now.
The diversionary programs might not be enough. Why not automatically give DJS the supervision or the jurisdiction to handle this, especially when we're seeing car thefts continue to rise?
I think that we, by providing that first step, and by saying if this doesn't work, okay, well, here's the juvenile jurisdiction that's there.
As we've seen, Schiraldi and the Department of Juvenile Services has been completely disconnected about the levels of juvenile crime. What you're seeing over and over as the bill gets watered down more and more is that there are no real tangible boundaries around the system.
Now, some of the criticism that we're already hearing stemming from Montgomery County State's Attorney John McCarthy. He argues that diversionary programs can be great, but he's concerned that there simply aren't enough available for these kids across the state.
No one is offended by giving young people treatment, but DJS doesn't have the resources nor the programs, and instead of holding children accountable for, in many instances, increasingly violent crime, we're putting them into a system that cannot deal with the numbers of children that are being forwarded to them for treatment. The way in which the bills are now being attacked is really suggesting more treatment, but it's not there.
Now, we expect the House will take a third vote on this potentially tomorrow or on Friday. And I just spoke with someone who says that the Senate version of this plan, which is similar with a few differences, is expected to come up on the floor for a second reader and more debate tomorrow. And a final vote in the Senate could take place later this week or early next week. I did just get a comment hearing from Governor Wes Moore to figure out where he stands on this. I'll bring that to you coming up at 5. We're live in the State House. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. Well, that brings us now to our question of the day. Should juveniles face criminal charges for stealing cars? This poll just opened. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
The Attorney General's office announcing the takedown of 6 suspects accused of committing at least 80 violent crimes across Baltimore City and Baltimore County. Now, among those arrested, 4 adults and 2 juveniles. But as Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor reports, that wasn't the case when the alleged crime spree started tonight. She joins us live after taking a deeper dive into the documents. Rebecca, what are you learning?
No, Mary, according to the Attorney General's report here, all but one of these 6 suspects were under the age of 18 at the time that this crime spree started, which is just adding to concerns that juvenile crime continues to soar across the state in the last year. Now, in this case in particular, the crimes included armed robberies, carjackings, and thefts crossing between city and county lines, many of them disturbingly violent in total. The indictment references 103 attacks, which affected the lives of at least 83 victims. The 6 suspects are accused of wearing masks as they brought guns to threaten and assault their victims, often pointing the guns at the victim's head, the indictment says. In one case, when a victim refused to hand over their car keys, the suspects are accused of running him over with another car before taking his keys and fleeing the scene. Community activist Ripsy Morgan says cases like these are the reason many are calling for changes to current juvenile justice reform laws.
I wish I could say that it was an isolated incident, but I have a feeling that we're probably going to see more of this. And the reason is because, again, we have these policies that refuse to stop this behavior before it gets out of hand. All that these poor laws have done is given these kids the opportunity to rack up these charges.
Coming up at 5 in our full story, we will have more details from the indictment in this case. But for now, reporting live in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
As I began to observe everything that was going on, it became clear to me. And that's why I'm here today, to express my appreciation and respect for Councilman Z. Cohen.
Happening today, Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates is backing Councilman Zeke Cohen in the City Council president's race. Bates says Cohen has been a local and national leader when it comes to setting an example in how to change a community. The City State's Attorney praising Cohen's efforts to address substance abuse issues, public safety, and more.
Whether it's targeting gun crimes or repeat violent offenders, or effectively addressing quality of life crimes through the implementation of the citation docket, Zeke has continued to be an open and honest partner on the City Council. And his insight and leadership as head of this body will improve the dynamics necessary to make us take our city to the next level.
Cohen is running against current City Council President Nick Mosby. Mosby's decision to seek a second term comes amid criticism about his ability to handle the job and oversee the city's spending board. While under oath during his ex-wife's trial, Nick Mosby admitted to lying to the public about his tax problems. In a one-on-one interview with Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost, he said he's learned from his mistakes and hopes the people of Baltimore can see that.
Why did you lie to the public?
Well, at the time, I still didn't realize that there was a formal tax lien. I mean, it's a lot of complications with the way it was actually entered, but it was a personal matter, and I should have addressed it as a personal matter. So I regret that, and you know, I think I've said that, and I'll constantly say that. So it's an opportunity for me to grow and learn from that.
For our full coverage on the City Council race, the mayoral race, and other key local elections this year, just head to foxbaltimore.com.
I turned 82 last week. The end of my contributions are closer than I'd prefer.
Breaking tonight, a major shakeup on Capitol Hill. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell will step down as Republican leader in November, ending his run as the longest-serving Senate leader in U.S. history. The 82-year-old has served in the Senate since 1985, as Republican leader since 2007. Questions about McConnell's health began last year after two incidents where he appeared to freeze at press conferences. Well, one of the suspects arrested for the death of a Maryland 2-year-old was set to be deported more than a year ago. The frustration from some who say local police or policies allowed him to stay in the state.
And we're continuing to follow the rain and wind across Maryland. A look ahead to what comes next.
Fox 45 News, winner of 16 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
Debate in Annapolis today over how kids should be punished for committing crimes in school. We've seen a number of incidents on campuses in recent months. 2 weeks ago, a 14-year-old was arrested for having a loaded handgun in his backpack at the Stadium School in Baltimore City. That student was charged with a handgun violation after a brief foot chase with a Baltimore City Schools police officer. Last month, another 14-year-old was arrested for having a loaded handgun at Dundalk High School in Baltimore County. And in December, a 15-year-old was arrested after 3 guns were found at Dunbar High School. All 3 of those guns belonged to the same student.
Amid the growing incidents, Maryland lawmakers are pushing to decriminalize disruptive behavior in schools. Supporters say they hope to eliminate disparities in disciplinary practices, but those against the bill say there'll be no accountability for bad behavior.
Addressing juvenile crime is at the forefront of this session in Annapolis as lawmakers look to hold young people accountable. But some say one bill could erode accountability.
This is one of those bills that is absolutely sends the wrong message.
House Bill 615 and Senate Bill 512, debated Wednesday, would prohibit students from being criminally charged for some forms of disruptive behavior in the classroom, like not sitting in their seat in class or talking back. The bill would also exempt students from penalties for threatening school employees with bodily harm if the threat is made while on school grounds. However, it doesn't prevent a child from being charged with breaking the law on school grounds.
I think it's a horrible bill. I think we continue to not hold anyone accountable for anything. And we have to set a standard here in the state. We have to set expectations and set the bar high and hold everyone accountable.
Opponents of the bill worry it could make teachers' jobs harder and make them feel less safe.
Like, it's okay to have rules. It's okay to enforce those rules. Consequences are good. That's how kids learn. And if we're taking all that away and now putting all the onus on the teachers to be, you know, now referees and boxing officials and all kinds of other things, it's completely unfair.
Senate Bill 512.
Senator Alonzo Washington introduced the bill to address the school-to-prison pipeline.
They don't need to be sentenced. They need help.
He says the goal is to combat racial and disability disparities by addressing the poor behavior of students without criminalizing them under Maryland's education code.
A student should not be treated like a criminal for simply acting out if they have not committed any other crimes. Students act out for many reasons. Sometimes they are not malicious and are simply misunderstood.
Now, that bill has passed second reader in the House and is being debated in the Senate.
Well, a weather maker bringing plenty of rain, gusty wind, even some thunder. And tonight we continue to track this system moving through our area. Let's check back in with Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali for the latest right now and what we can expect tonight. Gerard.
Good evening, Mary. I mean, so far we have had things be a little bit on the tame side, but we still have the next, I'd say, 3 to 6 hours to go before we've seen the bulk of what we have to come. So we're getting the rain. That is the one thing. We had some thunder earlier today, as you pointed out, and now we're still looking at some very wet roads. The commute is going to be a bit messy as you're heading out. I'm hoping that it can last another maybe hour or so before the worst of it hits, but we are still getting the rain to really have some impacts across the area. It's only 62 degrees. I mean, it's still pretty mild outside, but with the winds are starting to come up, south-southwest wind around 11 miles per hour out of Towson. But here comes our front, and this is a pretty strong one as it's approaching right on our doorstep now, and we could see some stronger thunderstorms come through the area over the next few hours. Now, so far, again, we're not seeing any of those really bright oranges, reds, or anything buried in all this rainfall. That's good news. Mostly just widespread moderate rainfall, but there is that potential. So the Storm Prediction Center has us for a marginal threat for some severe thunderstorms. We're talking only a level 1 out of 5. So it's on the very low end, but 1 or 2 storms could be strong enough here in the next couple of hours to produce some damaging wind gusts. Regardless of those storms, it's still going to be windy, gusting 50 miles per hour or so as this front goes by. This is trying to show the bulk of the activity moving through around 5, maybe 6 o'clock this evening. That's still a possibility. It could wait another hour, which I'm hoping for after everyone gets home. But otherwise, by 10 to around midnight, we'll see almost all the precipitation clear out. The wind still stays up, and it gets very chilly, dropping to the upper 20s to around 30 degrees tonight. Tomorrow is going to be a lot colder, too. Only highs in maybe the 40s for your afternoon, but we will be dry and we'll see a lot more sunshine. Here are those future wind gusts that we're talking about. Again, we're going to still see them gusting upwards of 45, maybe even 50 miles per hour, even as we move in the overnight hours. So if we get missed by the thunderstorm damaging winds, we could still see some gusty enough winds to bring down some limbs, maybe move the trash bins around. And then by Thursday, we're at least going to see those winds backing down a good bit. Rainfall totals still another ½ an inch on the table. We've already seen a good bit, but we could add to that. Now, your 7-day forecast, again, we're talking about the end of that system by tomorrow, but a lot chillier. Our temperatures do recover quite a bit as we go into the weekend. That's the good news, but a chance for some rainfall on Saturday, possibly lingering a bit into early next week.
President Biden hosted law enforcement officials from across the country at the White House Wednesday. During public remarks, he emphasized the national decline in most violent crimes since he took office in 2021. But he says more needs to be done, and experts agree. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar reports.
President Biden crediting his administration's actions for a substantial drop in crime across the country last year.
Murder, rape, aggravated assault, robbery all dropped sharply.
Now calling on Congress to approve $37 billion for crime prevention and to hire 100,000 police officers. According to the Council on Criminal Justice, most crime rates are declining, but are still generally higher than pre-pandemic levels. Gallup polls show personal safety fears are at a nearly 30-year high, but just 3% of Americans say crime and violence is the most important problem facing the country, far behind economic issues and immigration. And voters say they trust Republicans more than Democrats on the issue, 46% to 20%, according to an NBC News poll taken last fall.
The Biden administration is soft on crime. So we've had years of soft on crime prosecutors, including, unfortunately, in some of our cities in Missouri.
You often hear folks blame an increase or decrease in crime on whether the city or state is run by a Democrat or Republican. Does the data back up accusations like that?
It doesn't. There's no serious way to look at the political leadership at the city level or the state level when there are lags involved and all kinds of other confounding factors.
The president's approach to crime has evolved over the decades.
Would you stand, Senator Joe Biden?
During the Clinton administration, then Senator Biden was an architect of the 1994 crime bill. At the time, he said this about violent criminals.
They must be taken off the street.
The crime bill was later blamed for over-criminalization of black Americans. During his 2020 campaign, Biden said this.
Was it a mistake to support it?
Yes, it was. But here's where the mistake came. The mistake came in terms of what the states did locally.
And it's at the local level where experts say the most progress can be made, but that department still need clearer data and guidance from the federal government to build on that progress. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nishar reporting.
And that brings us to our national question of the day. Do you approve or disapprove of President Biden's handling of the issue of crime in the U.S.? To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com, click on the Pulse tab. Well, the results are in for Tuesday's national question of the day. We asked, what do you think is the most important problem facing the country? 49% of you said immigration, 30% said government, 13% said economy/inflation, and 8% said crime. Well, the presidential favorites both won in the Michigan primaries, but not without some red flags for their campaigns. The issues Trump and President Biden are trying to fix before the general election.
The main character in the story of the Biden impeachment inquiry on Capitol Hill. I'm Christine Frizzau with what Hunter Biden told lawmakers and how they're responding.
President Biden and former President Trump won their parties' respective Michigan primaries last night, but their victories come with warning signs for each. While Biden got 80% of the vote, he lost tens of thousands. That's because 50,000 people voted uncommitted in the Democratic primary. Polls also predicted Trump would get a 50-point win, and it looks like that's not going to happen. For Biden, the problem is opposition to his support for Israel's war in Gaza. And for Trump, it's all about his GOP opponent.
That this president has an opportunity to lead with moral clarity and say, we will change course before November. We will change course to save lives.
He's not bringing people into the party. He's pushing people out of the party. Colorado today has 10% less Republicans than they had before when Donald Trump was president.
Despite losing, Nikki Haley will likely earn about 25 to 30% of the vote when all ballots are counted. She says she's staying in the race until at least Super Tuesday, which is March 5th. Tonight, the star witness in the impeachment inquiry into President Biden was on Capitol Hill. Hunter Biden, whose business deals have been the focal point of the investigation led by House Republicans, met with lawmakers behind closed doors. National correspondent Christine Frizzau has the story.
He's been the centerpiece of the investigation into the Biden family, both from House Republicans and former President Donald Trump.
Where's Hunter?
Hunter Biden, the president's son, spent the day on Capitol Hill, speaking to lawmakers who have for months been working to impeach his father in what he calls a partisan political pursuit, saying, quote, "You have trafficked in innuendo, distortion, and sensationalism, all the while ignoring the clear and convincing evidence, staring you in the face. You do not have evidence to support the baseless and MAGA-motivated conspiracies about my father, because there isn't any." It's a sentiment echoed by his uncle James Biden, who testified last week, but one that stands in sharp contrast to claims Republicans have made for years that the reason Hunter Biden was able to seal so many business deals with wealthy companies in China, Russia, and elsewhere was because of Joe Biden's powerful positions in government, particularly while he was vice president. They've also insisted Joe Biden financially benefited from the deals, citing these two loan repayment checks Joe Biden received from his brother. They say immediately followed payments from business deals.
The basis of what we've learned is that the Bidens didn't have a legitimate business. Their business was selling access to Joe Biden, the brand.
Democrats say the evidence just isn't there, especially after a key GOP witness, Alexander Smirnov, was just charged with lying to the FBI about the matter, with evidence he was being fed information from Russian intelligence sources.
They've got nothing.
I think it is extremely disturbing to see the lack of professionalism, the lack of grounding, and the abuse of public resources and abuse of public power.
This is, of course, separate from the Justice Department investigation into Hunter Biden. Special counsel David Weiss looking into tax crimes and a gun charge against him. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzau.
Still ahead, a suspect in the country illegally accused of killing a 2-year-old boy in Prince George's County. The new details court documents are revealing tonight. And a shooting last night near a Towson shopping center. The unanswered questions from police as residents speak out.
Project Baltimore is sponsored by the Snyder Law Group. Don't just sue them, Snyder them.
A fifth person has been arrested in connection to a Prince George's County shooting that left a 2-year-old boy dead earlier this month.
Tonight, we're learning this suspect was in the country illegally and had been ordered to leave the U.S. years ago. Brad Bell from our Sinclair sister station in Washington, D.C. joins us now with the details. Brad?
Yeah, well, look, tonight this guy is locked up here at the Prince George's County Detention Center. He's charged with first-degree murder, so he is not getting out anytime soon. And he probably doesn't know that he has become the latest flashpoint in an ongoing dispute between federal immigration officials and local officials.
His name is Nilson Granados Trejo. He's 25 years old, and he is the fifth person now arrested in connection with the February 8th Langley Park street gang shootout, which killed 2-year-old Jeremy Pooh Caceres and wounded his mother when they got caught in the crossfire. Now, federal immigration officials are reporting that Granados Trejo is in the country illegally and that a judge had ordered him deported 2 years ago, and that Montgomery County Department of Corrections officials twice ignored ICE detainer orders and released him after theft arrests instead of turning him over to immigration. His case, one of several, recently prompting ICE officials to speak out. The war of words leading to a meeting with County Executive Mark Elrich and ICE officials yesterday. Elrich now saying the county will work to be more cooperative with ICE, but only when the people involved are convicted of violent crimes. Elrich saying before the alleged murder of the 2-year-old, Granados Trejo didn't make his cooperation list.
His arrests were for theft, and they were not on the list of serious crimes or violent crimes.
That Elrich said that what he is saying is that if people are accused of crimes on that list of his, they will try to give ICE 48 hours notice that they're going to be released. Now, I'm going to be back at 5 with more on this, and we'll actually take you along on a field operation with ICE in Upper Marlboro. Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
Thank you. Well, Congressman Andy Harris taking to X earlier today to address the arrest, saying, quote, MS-13 is a growing threat in Maryland because MD law allows places like Montgomery County to harbor illegals as a sanctuary county. Harris also saying both the Biden and Moore administrations are responsible to the victims whose lives have been affected by MS-13 gang members.
And this isn't the first story we've heard like this. Back in 2022, 20-year-old Kayla Hamilton was found raped and murdered in Aberdeen. Police say the suspect accused of the crime had ties to the MS-13 gang in El Salvador. According to a House of Representatives Judiciary Committee report, the suspect was 16 years old at the time and allowed to enter the U.S. as an unaccompanied alien child. That report also says he was previously arrested for illicit association with the MS-13 gang. Hamilton's mother says if he had never been allowed to enter the U.S., her daughter would still be alive.
She had high-functioning autism. She was a sweetheart. She was very happy and had a great outlook on life.
Hamilton's mother now suing the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Health and Human Services for $100 million. Her attorney says DHS failed to follow proper protocol, including checking for gang-related tattoos and fully vetting the identity of the suspect.
All DHS had to do was make a simple phone call to the El Salvadorian consulate, and he, again, would have been disqualified from entering the country.
Well, the issue also making headlines nationally. Last Thursday, a former University of Georgia student was found dead after jogging near a lake on campus. Police arrested her suspected killer, Jose Ibarra, the following day. Investigators say he did not know the victim nor attend the university and is an undocumented immigrant from Venezuela. His arrest sparking a debate over border security.
People don't realize that a lot of these, these individuals are predators in the Latino community. And so because they go, victims are afraid to report those crimes, their voices are never heard.
I think passing bills to criminal
itself. As for the names of the employees, the statement reiterates the fact that they are not city employees, which we know and we have reported several times. The Safe Streets workers are hired as employees of the nonprofits that are operating each location around the city. But the statement from the mayor's office did not say whether the names of these employees will be released to the public. We'll continue to push for more transparency, especially as this program continues to spend millions of taxpayer dollars. We're live tonight. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, when it comes to children learning how to read, most experts agree the pivotal year is third grade. Experts say it's at that point when children go from learning to read to reading to learn. Emily Mitchell is a former teacher who now works with Sylvan Learning. Mitchell says the importance of children reading at grade level by third grade has been understood now for years. That's because many children, she says, who fall behind in third grade never catch up.
You know, if they're close to third grade level, they'll be okay. But if they're not, it has honestly lifelong effects.
Tonight at 10, Project Baltimore investigates the connection between third grade reading levels and future outcomes.
In honor of National Reading Month, our parent company, Sinclair Broadcast Group, is partnering with Reading is Fundamental to launch Sinclair Cares, supporting children's literacy. The campaign will run throughout the month of March to raise awareness and help get books into the hands of children across the U.S. To kick things off, Sinclair is making a $25,000 donation. Find out how you can help by going to sinclaircares.com and beginning March 1st, join our virtual book drive. Every $4 donation provides a new book for a child. Baltimore County passes a budget that some say could hurt students, pressing county leaders on why they're cutting funding for teachers and the impacts it could have on kids.
Dean Kramer making his first start of spring as the O's continued Grapefruit League play here in Florida. How Kramer bounced back to finish his start early on, that's coming up next on Sports Unlimited.
Pretty wet out there this evening. Here's a look at your weather headlines. Of course, we're tracking the heavy rain, but also some thunderstorms. Wind advisories in effect tonight. We've got a pretty big cold blast behind this front that's rolling through. We're going to talk all about everything hour by hour, timing it out for you coming up.
Well, the Baltimore County School Board just passed a new budget, but this year they had to make some tough decisions, cutting hundreds of positions. Fox 45's Jessica Babb is live now, showing us what this means for students in the county. Jessica?
With pandemic relief money running out and blueprint mandates, the school system had to make up the money somewhere. One way they did that was by reducing positions, most of which they say are vacant. But some school board members say they're concerned about class sizes getting bigger. With the Baltimore County School Board making a decision on the budget.
Motion carries.
Many, like Cindy Sexton, the president of the Baltimore County Teachers Association, are preparing for what this means moving forward.
I don't like any budget that cuts positions. I don't love it, but I support it. I knew it was going to be a really tough fiscal year.
As pandemic funds expire, Superintendent Miriam Rogers says they're also getting a smaller percentage of blueprint funds, while still having to move forward with mandates. To deal with the sticky situation, school officials made about $104 million in cuts, something union leader William Burke addressed.
Case is supportive of the budget, but we need you to know that administrators, teachers, and staff are being asked to do more with less.
Those cuts include hundreds of positions on the chopping block. The school system says 239 non-teacher positions and about 255 teacher positions will be eliminated, the majority of which, they say, are vacant.
There are no furloughs, there are no layoffs.
The school system says reducing positions saves them about $30 million.
It is important that these positions be restored as soon as it is fiscally possible.
At Tuesday's school board meeting, class size was a concern for some.
What I'm not hearing anyone address is the real impact on our students.
While the school system says class sizes will be reduced in grades 3 to 5 to address student needs.
This budget, while it may not include everything that everyone wants, includes smaller class sizes for some of our youngest learners. And we know that third grade is the magic grade for reading.
Class sizes in middle and high schools are going up.
Every school will have the teachers that it needs. Every school will have the courses that they need. We are in tighter fiscal times.
While the school system won't identify which positions are impacted until employees are notified, Sexton says she will be watching and waiting to make sure those positions come back next year.
I sure will be.
The budget will now head to the county executive and the county council to review. Live in Baltimore County, Jessica Babb, Fox 45 News.
All right, Jessica, thank you. Well, we're tracking our next weather maker tonight. Wind advisories are in effect across Maryland as storms roll across the state. This is a live look at the Inner Harbor, our weather radar, and the conditions along the Beltway. Let's go to meteorologist Gerard Jabali now with the latest.
Good evening, Maxine and everyone. Certainly a rainy evening we were beginning with, but we've got a lot more coming. The roads right now, of course, are still very wet with the rain that's falling, but we're about to see some heavier stuff move into the area here as we move the next couple of hours. The winds are also going to come up quite a bit, so we've got some activity that's going to be happening tonight, no doubt. I'm hopeful and wanting here that we will get a short break around rush hour. So that's the hope. We are just now ticking into that hour right now. Here we go, 62. We do have rain still falling across Towson. Notice here is our front continuing to push into the area. We've got a little bit of a break here, and I'll show you that on the radar imagery here. So right now we're right on the edge of it, right across the I-95 corridor. Still some moderate to very light rain anywhere in those areas, but just on the other side, you notice we've got a little bit of a break here, and that is what we may be hopeful for to get through around 5 to 6 o'clock. But take a look at what's happening just past there. You see more heavier rain and some thunderstorms setting up back there towards Hagerstown. So we're going to continue to watch this as the night rolls in, and we're going to be looking at, again, winds gusting a little higher too. They're up now around 25 miles per hour. The severe threat's not zero, but it's very, very low. We're only talking about a 1 out of 5 threat. So basically maybe 1, possibly 2 storms could very briefly reach severe limits. And we're talking winds gusting maybe over 58 miles per hour to 65 miles per hour or so. But overall, it's not going to be a big problem from severe weather, but we are talking about winds being gusty even outside of thunderstorms, so that is going to be a factor for everyone as we move through the overnight hours. So here we go, past 5 to 6 o'clock is where we'll likely see this setting up. More heavier thunderstorms possible all the way through around 8 or 9. We'll start to see things clearing out even after the rain and thunderstorms end. The winds will be very gusty tonight as we move into 10, 11, maybe even around midnight. And then it's going to be getting cold. This front is strong, so it's going to be blasting in some colder air behind. And we're talking lows dropping tonight in the upper 20s, low 30s, highs tomorrow only in the 40s as the wind slowly relaxes throughout your day. So let's talk about those winds. Again, wind advisories in place for everybody, and that means we're going to see those winds gusting higher and higher as we move through the overnight hours. 45, 55 on the table, but we'll see that start to come down quite a bit as we get past around 2 or 3 in the morning. And then by tomorrow morning, only around 25-mile-per-hour wind gusts. And in total, another ½ an inch of rain is what we could see across the area. Some places may get just a touch more than that, but this is going to be another soaking rainfall until some of those heavier bands roll through. Here's your 7-day forecast. Tomorrow, after the rain is over, it's still going to be blustery with the cold blast that we have coming, plus the winds. 45 is going to feel a lot chillier with those winds gusting 25 miles per hour or so. And then we start to see the temperatures recover. Now, this weekend, we are going to be tracking some rain, especially on your Saturday morning. It shouldn't last all day, but we'll have that around likely for your morning. At least it's not going to be too cold after that. In fact, our temperatures continuing to rise into the 60s next week.
Coming up at 5 o'clock, the murder of a former University of Georgia student prompting new concerns over border security. Why some say her death is part of a troubling trend here in the U.S.
Grapefruit League play continued in the Sunshine State with the O's battling it out with the Minnesota Twins, while the Birds are approaching this season with unfinished business on their minds.
Now you can watch Fox 45 News for free anytime on Amazon Fire TV or Samsung TV Plus. As we get closer to welcoming baseball back to Baltimore, the O's are preparing down in Florida at spring training. Sports Unlimited is there now with the latest on the team. Rocco?
Yeah, what's going on? It's the same sunny Florida, same weather, same O's, but a different location for today's Grapefruit League matchup between the O's and the Minnesota Twins. Let's talk about last season, though. The O's, they accomplished so much, from winning the AL East to winning that 1 seed, securing that 1 seed in the American League. 101 wins. This team did so much, but this group, the core, many of them in the lineup today, believe that they're capable of so much more going forward into 2024.
We're just excited about this year. I think that's just the vibe in the clubhouse. Is we're excited. We know that there's unfinished business left, and that's a situation that you want to be in, though. You know, you don't want to be fighting and clawing from the bottom. You know
what we did last year. Guys have a lot of confidence coming in this year. We know what we want to do, and guys are excited to be back.
Yeah, it's a new season, and it's got its new challenges, and we're super excited. Got a really good team, and expectations are a little higher than usual, but we're just gonna go out there and play our game and have fun.
So a guy that played a huge role in the O's success last season, that's Dean Kramer, and he was on the mound today against the Twins. His first start of spring ball. Kramer ran into some trouble early, unloading the bases with no outs, but he settled in, getting out of the jam nearly unscathed, allowing the only run of the inning on a sac fly. 1-0 Twins. Top 2, Ramon Arias comes through in a big way for his starting pitcher. 1 on for the Gold Glover, and he sends that ball packing. The 2-run shot gives the O's a 2-1 lead. Bottom half of the inning, Kramer was lights out, retiring the Twins in order. 1 earned and 2 Ks on the day for Dean. And the O's bats then caught fire again in the third. Arias with another RBI. Then Colton Cowser staying hot this spring. How about a 3-run homer to center for the exclamation point as the O's breeze past the Twins, 12-3, the final score. And in talking to Dean Kramer after his first outing of spring, he says he wants to do much of the same from last year, in that remaining healthy, even improving, and pitch so many more innings in 2024. For now, live in Fort Myers, Rocco DeSangro for Sports Unlimited.
All right, here's your next weather maker. We're still tracking this system. That's really our cold front, and it's been pretty strong, and we're going to continue to watch this moving through the area. As it does, it's going to produce, of course, some very heavy rainfall, and we're already seeing, of course, moderate rainfall across the area. Some of that may come to a brief end here. We've got a small break before the next batch of rain and thunderstorms starts to come across our area, which is going to happen here in just the next couple of hours. Right now, you can see it right along the I-81 corridor, continuing to set up some heavier rainfall with some gustier winds expected later on this evening. Right now, we are gusting around 24 miles per hour, but that is going to come up a lot tonight. And we also have a small risk, but not zero, of a few of these storms becoming strong to severe with damaging winds. The only threat that we're really seeing here tonight, 1 or 2 may produce some wind gusts in excess of 58 miles per hour. And again, this threat will come to a pretty quick end as we move through around 9-10 o'clock tonight. So overall, we're going to be tracking more of this pretty strong weather as this system rolls through the area. Not going to be looking at a whole lot more beyond this system until we get later into the weekend. We're going to be getting very chilly as we move through the overnight hours. Around 30 degrees or so is where we'll bottom out. And we're also looking at temperatures only in the 40s for highs tomorrow. So it's going to be at least sunny. It will be pretty blustery, though. Winds will still be gusting 25 miles per hour throughout the daytime. So again, those wind gusts, here they are. We're talking 45, 50 as we move through the late hours this evening into tonight. But once we get into the early morning hours, we'll start to see that improving a little by little.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5, back and forth in Annapolis over new amendments to the juvenile crime bill. We'll have a live report from the State House with the latest on the changes. And the trial continues for the man accused of killing a Baltimore police officer and a civilian. The new details coming out in court.
We are tracking your next weather maker. We're watching heavy rain, some thunderstorms. Winds will be gusty, and we're also talking about a big cold blast behind the system. We're tracking this for you.
Lawmakers gathering in Annapolis again to continue talks over proposed juvenile crime bills. Fox 45 News taking a closer look at the bills and the latest rounds of amendments.
Plus, day 2 of the trial for the murders of BPD officer Kiana Hawley and Justin Johnson. The latest developments out of court.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
Fox 45 News tracking that weather maker moving across Maryland tonight, bringing heavy rain and strong wind through the region. A live look from the Bay Bridge, where there is currently a wind warning in effect. Drivers who are going very slowly there, you see a lot of brake lights, are being advised to use caution while traveling across the bridge. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Maxine Stryker. As the system moves through overnight, we will see another cool down.
Let's get right over to Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali with the latest on this forecast. Gerard.
Good evening, Maxine and Mary. And yes, I'd say a cool down, maybe putting it a little bit delicately. This is going to be a real cold blast when we're talking about today. Temperatures in the mid 60s. And then tonight we drop down to the upper 20s. So let's get to it. We do have some rain across the area. Of course, we've been seeing a lot of wet roads. We've heard some thunder earlier today. A small break I am hoping will hold as we move through this 5 o'clock hour. Everyone trying to get where they want to go on your evening commute home. But we've got some more thunderstorms setting up just back to our north and west. All right, so wind advisory in place, and that is in effect now until 4 a.m. later tonight, early tomorrow morning. Gusty winds that'll be out of the south but turning northwest, 20 to 30 sustained. We'll see gusts upwards of 50 miles per hour anywhere inside of those areas. And we're going to be tracking, of course, the rain as well. So temperatures taking a crash down into the 30s as we were watching for those thunderstorms also roll through. We have a small risk for some of them to even become severe. We're going to track this all for you, talk about the severe risks and how cold it's going to be for us tomorrow. Mary.
All right, thank you. Wake up with Fox 45 morning weather team as they continue to track these storms throughout the night. Meteorologist Justin Chambers will have your forecast and traffic impact starting at 4:30 a.m.
And now to session 2024 coverage. The House of Delegates debating new details in the juvenile crime legislation today on the floor.
That's right. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has been tracking the changes. She joins us live from the State House to walk us through some of these new plans. Mackenzie.
Mary and Maxine, it was a spirited debate today on the House floor, lasting more than an hour. Ultimately, kids who are accused of stealing a car for the first time, depending on their age, might not face charges. And now, as this continues to evolve, we're seeing more concerns emerge about this bill eventually getting watered down.
In late January, top Democrats making it clear
we must hold our state and our local agencies accountable for improving the juvenile justice system.
Juvenile crime is a top priority for this 90-day session. But in the weeks since first announcing the bills, several changes have been made. Right now, kids under 13 can only be charged with violent crimes like rape, murder, and carjacking. The original bill, as introduced, called to expand that law, allowing juvenile offenders between 10 and 12 years old to be charged with animal abuse, firearm possession, third-degree sexual offenses, and car theft. But now in the House, that list is shorter, only requiring kids accused of stealing a car to be sent to a diversion program for their first offense. The Senate version of the plan is similar, except it requires the child in need of supervision petition to be filed when the juvenile between the same ages steals a car.
Madam Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk.
On the House floor Wednesday, passionate debate on various proposed amendments.
Clerk will take the call.
Like one calling for more parental rights in the juvenile interrogation process.
I am struck by the fact that almost uniformly, the law enforcement community who is dealing with the juvenile crime issues confronting our state today has suggested that we need to do something to reform the juvenile interrogation system. And that's what this is intended in. And that's all it's intended in. It's simply to provide a little bit more balance.
I ask you and implore you, please vote against this amendment. We do not need a Central Park 5 in Maryland.
Chairman Luke Clippinger, who has been leading the effort in crafting the language.
So what we're envisioning is that a police officer takes them directly into a diversion program.
Argues requiring participation in these diversion programs is enough to change behavior.
The diversionary programs might not be enough. Why not automatically give DJS the supervision or the jurisdiction to handle this, especially when we're seeing car thefts continue to rise?
I think that by providing that first step, and by saying, if this doesn't work, okay, well, here's the juvenile jurisdiction that's there.
And while some Republicans view the changes as a compromise,
what we're dealing with in the current law is not okay. And we have to get something through to make it better by the end of session. And I don't agree with it. I think that those things should still be in the law, but these are just the compromises we have to make.
Others, like Delegate Robin Grammer, argue the accountability teeth being stripped from the bill.
Do you think that requiring the diversion program for the first offense for car thefts is really sending a message that there are consequences for behavior?
Yeah, I think the Democrats have really been jawboning the accountability word, and I think what you're seeing over and over as the bill gets watered down more and more is that there are no real tangible boundaries around the system.
Grammer says he's concerned about what kids might do next, and this proposal won't help.
What if next the next big thing on social media is keying cars? What if it's slashing tires? That's not going to do anything. If a certain category of crime explodes, we're not prepared for that, and this bill doesn't prepare us for that.
The reaction already intense.
I'm very concerned that the Senate bill has removed motor vehicle thefts.
Montgomery County State's Attorney John McCarthy says the diversion program framework is not in place statewide, and without clear consequences, kids' behavior may not change.
No one is offended by giving young people treatment, but DJS doesn't have the resources nor the programs, and instead of holding children accountable for, in many instances, increasingly violent crime, we're putting them into a system that cannot deal with the numbers of children that are being forwarded to them for treatment.
The House version of the bill moving forward.
The amendment passes.
Expected to come up again for a final vote later this week, with all of the changes included.
Now, the Senate has its own version of the plan as well, which mirrors similar to what we heard today in the House. The Senate is expected to take a vote on their plan tomorrow. Meanwhile, Governor Wes Moore today was asked about where the legislation stands. He says that he feels good about the current situation, but he reminded lawmakers that accountability needs to be at the center of anything that lands on his desk. We're live in the State House. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. That brings us to our question of the day. Should juveniles face criminal charges for stealing cars? Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. And yesterday, we asked you if juvenile crime legislation fails to pass, will it change the way you vote in the upcoming election? 97% of those who voted said yes.
The Attorney General's office announcing the takedown of 6 suspects accused of committing at least 80 violent crimes across Baltimore City and Baltimore County. Among those arrested, 4 adults and 2 juveniles. But as Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor reports, that wasn't the case when the alleged crime spree started. Tonight, she joins us live after taking a deeper dive into some of these documents. Rebecca?
Mary, the ages of the adult suspects now range from 18 to 20 years old. But when this all started, the majority of them were juveniles, adding to concerns over a rise in juvenile crime across the state.
On a brazen crime spree of armed robberies, carjackings, and thefts crossing between city and county lines.
Horrifying string of violence in the Baltimore area.
This case, 6 arrests to 80 cases.
6 suspects indicted on 156 violent charges, accused of carrying out dozens of violent attacks affecting the lives of at least 83 victims and taking the life of 1. According to the indictment, the suspects habitually wearing masks and dark clothing, armed with guns, often pointed at the victim's head, before stealing cell phones, ATM machines, cash registers, wallets, and up to 36 cars. In one case, a victim claiming a suspect told them, "Get out or we will kill you." Another claiming they said, "Give me everything before I blow your head off." And when one person refused to comply, the suspects allegedly running the victim over with a car, then taking their car keys and fleeing the scene.
You're talking about violent behavior that many residents, innocent residents, have been subjected to.
Community activist Euripsy Morgan calling the behavior especially concerning when considering the ages of the accused perpetrators. At the time of their first alleged offense, all but 1 minors carrying out major crimes.
I mean, when you look at 200 plus charges, you have to ask yourself, why were these kids still out on the street? And it's because we have these terrible laws.
Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown speaking to the escalation of young people committing crimes in the last year around the same time new juvenile justice reform laws took effect.
One issue we continue to see, as witnessed in this case, is continued youth involvement in crime.
Adjustments to those laws now up for debate in Annapolis. Many lawmakers calling for clearer consequences, while others claim there's not enough data to justify changes.
What are you waiting for? Are you waiting for another situation in which a juvenile kills somebody and then is facing life in prison? Is that the data that we're waiting for?
Meanwhile, Morgan arguing this case alone should be enough evidence current laws aren't working.
That we owe it not just to ourselves, but to them as well, to set them on a straighter path before it gets out of hand.
As of now, the AG's office says that only one of the suspects' cases will be tried in juvenile court due to the other current ages of the suspects and the nature of their alleged crimes. The rest will be tried in adult court. Reporting live in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. Day 2 of the trial for the murders of Baltimore police officer Kiana Hawley and civilian Justin Johnson. Officer Hawley and Johnson were killed in separate shootings back on December 16, 2021. Investigators arrested and charged Elliot Knox and Trayvon Shaw with their murders. Knox is currently standing trial. Alexa Ashwell was in court and joins us live with today's testimony.
Maxine, the key piece of evidence presented by the state today, Elliot Knox's interview with police. Much of the portions played centered on Officer Kiana Hawley and her murder, including questions about how and why.
In day 2 of the trial for the murders of BPD officer Kiana Hawley and Justin Johnson, the state played a recording of defendant Elliot Knox's interview with police after he was taken into custody back in December 2021. It was in this video that one of the homicide detectives who conducted the interview testified that Knox admitted to being there, described the guns they had, and gave investigators his co-defendant's name, Trayvon Shaw. Knox's admissions not immediate and literally at a whisper. In the video, Knox first telling investigators, "I was not involved in that," then expressing concern about his safety if he cooperates. On a detective's body-worn camera, Knox is captured whispering to the investigator in the hallway, "I just don't want to say it on camera." Knox then asking to speak with the city state's attorney. The detective declines the request. As the interview continues, detectives question the motive in Officer Hawley's murder, asking, "Why? Why her?" Knox, "He never told me." BPD, "Did he deal with her?" Knox, "I don't know. I didn't even know it was a lady until today." During the interview, Knox later telling investigators Shaw laughed after shooting Officer Hawley, specifically at how she crashed and the look on her face as she tried to drive off. One family member walking out of the courtroom as that portion of the interview played. Knox becoming emotional twice in court. In the interview video saying if he could say something to Hawley, it would be, "Forgive me for not helping you." Knox then calling himself a coward for not stepping up earlier. Other witnesses called by the state included 2 crime scene techs and a deputy medical examiner. One crime scene tech testified to processing the scene of Justin Johnson's homicide and verified evidence collected, including shell casings. The other crime scene tech testified to processing a vehicle and seizing 2 sets of earplugs and 2 cell phones. Testimony from the deputy medical examiner who supervised the autopsies for both Officer Hawley and Johnson, another very emotional moment for the family. Officer Hawley's sister having to briefly excuse herself from the courtroom as the jury was shown images from the examinations. Hawley was shot 4 times, including twice in the head. The officer's sister describing the moment as very heavy.
And Officer Hawley's family not commenting on camera today. The state still has a number of witnesses to call to the stand, as well as a number of pieces of evidence to present. That will continue tomorrow and likely go into Friday. Reporting live in downtown Baltimore, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. Coming up after the break, a shooting in Towson leaves the community on edge as we see more violent crime in that area. Fox 45 News taking a closer look at what's behind the alarming trend.
And some inside City Hall now pressing for transparency within the Safe Streets program, something Fox 45 News has been doing for years.
Plus, spring training for the Orioles is in full swing. Rocco DeSangro will join us live from Sarasota with a full report. No answers tonight about what prompted gunfire at a Towson apartment complex yesterday evening. It happened at the Towsontown Place apartments off Loch Raven Boulevard. Police say a 21-year-old man was shot several times, and so far no suspect information has been given out. Fox 45's Amy Simpson live now, digging into what happened. Amy, this is scary for students.
Yeah, so some of the residents who live here tell me this is a frequent private off-campus housing spot for students at both Morgan State and Towson University. But tonight, both of those schools quick to tell me the victim, not one of their students.
Police lights and police tape lining this part of Towsontown Place apartments Tuesday evening.
Yeah, I've got multiple shots fired coming in.
After Baltimore County police say a 21-year-old man was shot multiple times.
The victim should be across from the location in the grass.
Emergency dispatch revealing the first calls came in just before 5 p.m.
Our time for tourniquet for right leg and left arm. He also has a gunshot wound to the lower abdomen. Actually, it's multiple, 3 that I can see in the abdomen.
Whether this shooting was a targeted or random act, today police telling Fox 45 News that is under investigation.
All I heard was like my boyfriend saying, "Be careful, there's like police cars outside."
Destiny Wood says she's lived in this complex for the past few years.
I was trying to mind my business, but curiosity get the best of you.
And while she tells us she didn't hear the gunshots, she did see some of what followed.
There was like a police tape like from that tree all the way from over here, and then like it looped around over there, so like nobody could like be in this general area.
Tonight it's unknown what happened in the moments leading up to those gunshots, who the shooter is, or if the victim lives in the neighborhood.
You don't gotta resort to violence.
But this neighbor questions what prompted someone to pull out a gun.
It should never resort to that, but if it does, it's mostly over like money or drugs or somebody else's significant other. Like those are the top 3 things.
And today when I asked Baltimore County Police for a suspect description in this case, they were only willing to say it's under investigation. Reporting live in Towson, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Got a busy day today. Of course, weather has been pretty messy out there. Plenty of rainfall on the roads, on the ground. But hey, at Camden Yards, the rain's a good thing, right? It brings a little bit of water to the grass there, and I'm hoping it will green up a lot. I've been staring right here just to see how it's been looking. Not too far away from the start of spring and, of course, the start of baseball season here. 60 degrees starts to feel a little bit spring-like. We actually reached 66 degrees today, but we are about to crash into the ground with some colder air coming. This is a strong cold front as our next weather maker here, and it's been bringing the rainfall all day. Now we've got to watch for a chance for some more thunderstorms as the system rolls by. So on the radar picture, still looking at rainfall. We were getting a very brief break between the rain. Now it's back again across Baltimore and all the way across back to Gaithersburg, but we're looking back towards the further west into Hagerstown, seeing some thunderstorms setting up, and a few of these, if they hold together, could produce not just some heavy rain, some thunder, lightning, and also some gustier winds. Regardless of what comes out of those, we're going to be looking at some stronger winds later on tonight. But 1 or 2 of those storms could be on the strong side, producing some damaging wind gusts in excess of 58 miles per hour. The Storm Prediction Center has a marginal risk or a level 1 out of 5 threat for basically the majority of the area here. And that's not exactly anything we're too concerned about, but we'll keep our eyes out for 1 or 2 of these storms to become very briefly severe. Otherwise, it's going to be windy for almost everyone tonight. As we move through the overnight hours, get ready to see the winds really gusting. Make sure the trash bins are well secured and anything else, because it will blow off your deck, off your driveway. If it's not, then we'll see temperatures crashing down after this front rolls through. Before that, some heavier rain and thunderstorms will be possible, and we'll talk about the rain coming to an end somewhere around the 10 o'clock to midnight hours or so. And the wind is still going to be up, though. After the rain moves out, it's still going to be very gusty. We're talking quite a bit, nearing 50-mile-per-hour winds at times. And then our temperatures will start to really come in with that cold blast, as we'll see them drop into the upper 20s, around 30 degrees. Tomorrow's highs only in the mid-40s. So this is going to be a big change here coming as we move into your Thursday. Here's a look at those wind gusts, as we've been talking about. We could see them gusting 40 miles per hour as we tick past 5 to around 8 o'clock. We'll see them gusting upwards of 50 to maybe even 55 miles per hour at times through around midnight. Then they'll step back down again. We'll see that into Thursday, a bit blustery, but nothing terrible. We're just talking about, again, windy conditions and cold temperatures, making it feel very cold. As we can tell, about a half an inch of rainfall coming, and we're going to keep that around just for tonight. Tomorrow's nice and dry but blustery, very chilly, but we'll see those temperatures recovering pretty quickly as we move into the weekend. Another chance of rainfall likely as we move into Saturday morning.
Gerard, thank you. Still ahead, hundreds of positions cut within the Baltimore County school system, the latest funding approved, and how it could have major impacts going forward.
Grapefruit League play continued in the Sunshine State as the O's battled it out with the Minnesota Twins. Why this group is approaching the 2024 campaign with some unfinished business on their minds.
Taking a live look at Camden Yards tonight, what I notice most is that it is still light outside at close to 5:30. We are just 29 days away from opening day. The O's will be hosting the LA Angels on March 28th. First pitch is at 3:05. But right now, the Orioles are well into spring training down in Sarasota. Sports Unlimited's Rocco DeSangor joins us live from Florida with everything happening down there today. Rocco.
Yeah, Mary, it's still beautiful out, sunny out. It's like 5:15, 5:20 p.m. So the weather's great. The O's were great. They have been all spring, and that's what they want to continue to do. Whether these games are meaningless or not for the wins and loss column, they're not meaningless for the players that are out there competing for jobs. So the O's, they did indeed roll to a big win over the Minnesota Twins. But let's talk about what this team did last year for a second. I know it's a fresh slate going into the 2024 season, but last year, winning the AL East, locking up that 1 seed in the AL East, talking to players earlier, seeing guys, hearing from them. This group, many of who are out there today on the field, they feel like they can accomplish so much more in 2024, the season ahead.
We're just excited about this year. I think that's just the vibe in the clubhouse. We're excited. We know that there's unfinished business left, and that's a situation that you want to be in, though. You know, you don't want to be fighting and clawing from the bottom. You know
what we did last year, guys have a lot of confidence coming in this year. We know what we want to do, and you know, guys are excited to be back.
Yeah, it's a new season, and you know, it's got its new challenges, and we're super excited. Got a really good team, and yeah, expectations are a little higher than usual, but we're just gonna go out there and play our game and have fun.
How about a guy that played a huge role in the O's success last season? That's Dean Kramer, and he was on the mound today against the Twins. His first start of spring ball, Kramer ran into some trouble early on, loading the bases with no outs, but then he would settle in, getting out of the jam nearly unscathed, allowing only one run of the inning on a sac fly, 1-0 Twins. Top two, Ramon Arias comes through in a big way for his starting pitcher, for himself as well. One on for the Gold Glover, and he sends that ball packing. The two-run shot gives the O's a 2-1 lead. Bottom half of the inning now, Kramer, that's when he started rolling. He was lights out, retiring the Twins in order, 1 earned and 2 Ks on the day. And the O's bats would catch fire again in the third. Arias with another RBI, then Colton Cowser staying hot this spring. How about a 3-run homer to center for the exclamation point as the O's breeze past the Twins in this one, 12-3, the final score. And in talking with Dean Kramer after his outing, obviously, he didn't want to load the bases and give up that 1 run, but pretty solid outing regardless from Dean Kramer. He said he wants to do much of what he did last season in staying healthy and even taking it a step further and improving and pitching more innings in 2024 for the season ahead. For now, live in Fort Myers, Rocco DeSangro for Sports Unlimited.
Rocco, thank you. Coming up after the break, the calls for transparency surrounding the Safe Streets program growing louder, the hearing happening next week, and the questions we still have from Mayor Scott. Well, now you can watch Fox 45 News for free anytime on Amazon Fire TV or Samsung TV Plus. Baltimore City Council members are starting to push for more transparency for the Safe Streets program, but there are still some details leaders inside City Hall aren't turning over.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has been investigating Safe Streets for years and joins us live with new questions for Mayor Brandon Scott. Mackenzie?
Maxine and Mary, we know that this city council hearing will take place next Thursday, looking into the hiring practices of Safe Streets workers, right? And this hearing was called after several of our investigations uncovered the connection between former Safe Streets workers and possible gang activity in Baltimore City. Now, we know that we have been demanding answers from the city for years about who are these Safe Streets employees. We filed public records requests. We've asked Mayor Brandon Scott. We've asked leaders of the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, and each time we have been told that the names must be kept private due to safety concerns. When we even filed a public records request, the names of the Safe Streets workers were redacted. But we also know that these employees are hired because they are supposed to be credible messengers and are known in their communities. So given this and this upcoming hearing, we sent a few questions to Mayor Brandon Scott's office this week, asking if these employees are credible messengers and are known in the community, will Monzi and the city release the names of the Safe Streets workers to the public? We also asked if Monzi has been directed by the mayor to fully participate in this upcoming hearing, fully explaining how the hiring process works for these employees. Mayor Scott's office got back to us in a statement saying Monzi will fully participate, outlining how these employees are screened and hired. They also said that the Safe Streets workers are not city employees, which we have known and reported several times. Instead of being an actual employee of the city, these Safe Streets workers are employed by the nonprofits that are working with the city to run the 10 different Safe Streets locations. However, in this statement from the mayor's office, they did not say whether the names of the employees will be released to the public. Meanwhile, we will continue to demand transparency about the Safe Streets program, especially as it continues to spend millions of taxpayer dollars. We're live tonight. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Turning to the crisis at the southern border, a fifth person has been arrested in connection to a Prince George's County shooting that left a 2-year-old boy dead earlier this month.
We are learning that this suspect charged in the child's death was in the country illegally and had been ordered to leave the U.S. years ago.
And the news comes as we see more illegal migrants commit crime across the nation.
We have team coverage tonight, starting with Brad Bell from our Sinclair sister station in Washington, D.C. He has the details surrounding that fifth arrest. Brad?
Yeah, look, we have been digging into it. We approached Montgomery County Executive Mark Elrich with the facts of this story. He is now pledging better cooperation with ICE, something that Montgomery County has not done. You know, for days now, ICE has been really trying to make the point that not cooperating is dangerous. They showed us last week by taking us out on a field operation.
Last Friday, we were with ICE agents as they prepped for an early morning raid aiming to catch a non-citizen in the country illegally who'd been convicted of multiple crimes of violence, but who had been released by a local county despite an ICE detainer.
So what's happening right now is they've gotten to a point in time where they feel like they'll be able to get the guy that they are after. So we're walking down this residential street, approaching the house.
After some nervous moments and a search of the home, the immigration agents leave empty-handed and frustrated with the lack of cooperation from local county leaders.
This is a very dangerous person that is now running the streets.
Now, ICE is pointing to the case of this man, 25-year-old Nilson Granados Trejo, street name Gucci. They say he was ordered deported 2 years ago, that he has been arrested twice since in Montgomery County, but released from the county detention center each time despite ICE detainers. Now, he's charged with murder for his alleged role in the February 8th Langley Park street gang shootout, which led to the death of 2-year-old Jeremy Poo Caceres, the head of the local ICE field office last week, blasting the county policy of non-cooperation and warning of such possible consequences.
One of the major frustrations for me is when these executives are releasing egregious offenders back into the communities. How are they protecting the communities?
Today, Montgomery County Executive Mark Elrich addressing the issue after meeting with ICE officials, promising better cooperation, including 48 hours notice when someone with a detainer is to be released. But he's sticking to his policy of cooperation only when the subjects of detainers do serious crimes.
And it's anything violent, anything related to sex offenses, child abuse, use of a gun or any other weapon. It's a pretty good list of things that we will deport for. and we will cooperate.
As for Gucci, the man now charged with murder in Prince George's County, Elrich explains his prior releases this way.
His arrests were for theft, and they were not on the list of serious crimes or violent crimes.
So tonight, this guy called Gucci on the streets is locked up here at the Prince George's County Detention Center. He is charged with murder. He is being held without bond. ICE has issued a detainer here, so when this case is eventually adjudicated, they say they want to get a hold of him. Now, we've reached out to the office of Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobooks. They have had a similar policy of non-cooperation as Montgomery County. A spokesperson for her sending us their list of very serious crimes where they say they will cooperate with ICE. And of course, murder is on that list. We'll continue to follow this case. In Upper Marlboro, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
The Baltimore County School Board just passed a new budget, but they had to make some tough decisions, cutting hundreds of positions. Fox 45's Jessica Babb is live showing us what this means for students. Jessica?
With pandemic relief funding running out and blueprint mandates, the school system had to come up with more money somewhere. And one way they did that was by reducing positions both in and out of the classroom, most of which they say were vacant. But some school board members say they're concerned about class sizes getting bigger. With the Baltimore County School Board making a decision on the budget.
Motion carries.
Many, like Cindy Sexton, the president of the Baltimore County Teachers Association, are preparing for what this means moving forward.
I don't like any budget that cuts positions. I don't love it, but I support it. I knew it was going to be a really tough fiscal year.
As pandemic funds expire, Superintendent Miriam Rogers says they're also getting a smaller percentage of blueprint funds, while still having to move forward with mandates. To deal with the sticky situation, school officials made about $104 million in cuts, something union leader William Burke addressed.
Case is supportive of the budget, but we need you to know that administrators, teachers, and staff are being asked to do more with less.
Those cuts include hundreds of positions on the chopping block. The school system says 239 non-teacher positions and about 255 teacher positions will be eliminated, the majority of which, they say, are vacant.
There are no furloughs. There are no layoffs.
The school system says reducing positions saves them about $30 million.
It is important that these positions be restored as soon as it is fiscally possible.
At Tuesday's school board meeting, class size was a concern for some.
What I'm not hearing anyone address is the real impact on our students.
While the school system says class sizes will be reduced in grades 3 to 5 to address student needs.
This budget, while it may not include everything that everyone wants, includes smaller class sizes for some of our youngest learners. And we know that third grade is the magic grade for reading.
Class sizes in middle and high schools are going up.
Every school will have the teachers that it needs. Every school will have the courses that they need. We are in tighter fiscal times.
While the school system won't identify which positions are impacted until employees are notified, Sexton says she will be watching and waiting to make sure those positions come back next year.
I sure will be.
The budget will now head to the county executive and the county council to review. Live in Baltimore County, Jessica Babb, Fox 45 News.
Still ahead, the Supreme Court hearing arguments to overturn a Trump-era federal ban on bump stocks. The questions justices are facing over classification and regulation.
All right, the way things are shaping up, still going to be an active night, maybe not as severe. That's what I'm hoping for, but here's your weather headlines. Continuing to track the rain and thunderstorms. The wind advisory still in effect through the overnight hours. And we've got a cold blast coming in behind this front. We'll show you how cold it's going to get on the other side in just a bit.